In this video, we're going to do the dividing integers worksheet, but I'm just going to do random ones as examples. For the first one, you could do 6 into 48 the old-fashioned way. 48 divided by 6. 6 doesn't fit into 4. 6 fits into 48 8 times. It gives you 48. You subtract, get 0. So the answer is 8. That's one way of doing it, just straightforward division. I think that way is sometimes more difficult, just because you have to remember, does this really divide into that? So my preferred way is, if you have a fraction, that means 48 is being divided by 6, negative 48 is being divided by 6, you can find out what's in common. Well, 6 is even and 48 is even, so I can divide 6 by 2, and I can divide 48 by 2. If I do that, then negative 48 becomes negative 24. Negative 24 divided by 3. Does 3 and 24 have anything in common? No. So then here, this is the most simplified fraction I can have. And then with that fraction, I can do the top number divided by the bottom number. You don't have to worry about the signs whenever you're doing this straight long division. 3 does not fit into 2. 3 fits into 24 8 times. 8 times 3, you do the top number times the front number. 8 times 3 makes 24. We subtract 24 minus 24 to get 0. So negative 24 divided by 3 is equal to 8. But because that 24 is negative, the answer is negative 8. On number 2, we have a negative divided by a negative. So we can just ignore the negative signs. We can pretend that it's positive. 80 divided by 5. 5 doesn't really have anything in common with 80, besides that they're both divisible by 5. I could divide 5 into 5, and I could divide 80 by 5. But that's the same thing as just doing 80 divided by 5. 5 fits into 8 once. You're going to have a 3 remaining. So 5 fits into 30 6 times. So the answer to this one is 16. On number 4, a divide symbol. That's why it's important that you read your fractions out loud, because sometimes we have division symbols. Negative 384 divided by 6 is what that says. So that is the same thing as negative 384 divided by 6. The bar in a fraction means divided by. This symbol also means divided by. So as long as you read it right, you should be able to picture what the answer, how you need to solve that. So with this, I'm going to reduce the bottom by 3. And I don't know if this can, but I'm going to try to reduce the top by 3. 6 divided by 3 equals 2. 384 divided by 3 is, well, 3 fits into that first number 1 time. 3 fits into 8 twice. And 3 fits into 24. 3 fits into 24 8 times. And it was negative, so this is still negative. So I have negative 128 divided by 2. So that means I'm going to cut 128 in half. Half of 12 is 6. Half of 8 is 4. So the answer is negative 64. And your hint for these other two questions are negative 72 divided by 4. You can reduce them, or you could just do your long division. Negative 340 divided by negative 2. Negative 340 divided by negative 2. Down here, in the hint, I said you can simplify the top. So that means you do whatever's on top first. 64 divided by negative 8. Well, 64 is 8 squared, so 64 divided by negative 8 is going to be negative 8 divided by, and then we do the bottom. 12 divided by negative 3. 12 divided by negative 3. That means how many times does negative 3 fit into 12? The answer would be negative 4 times. Now that we simplified the top, we simplified the bottom, we can figure out how many times does 4 fit into 8? Twice. I'll go to number 12. Negative 6 times negative 16. So you can do the straight math, which is 16 times 6. Or how I would like to do it is 6 times... since these are both negatives, I'm just going to make them both positives because 2 negatives make a positive. 6 times 10 plus 6. That's because 6 times 16 is equal to 6 times 10 plus 6. And you know the distributive property says 6 times 10 and then 6 times 6. So 6 times 16 is 60 plus 36. 6 times 10 made 60, 6 times 6 made 36. So the answer to the top part of this question is 96. Then we have negative 12 divided by negative 6. Negative 12 divided by negative 6 means how many times does negative 6 fit into negative 12? 6 times 2 makes 12, so the answer is 2. So we have 96, we're trying to cut it in half, so half of 96 is 48. Five times negative 60, we're doing number 14 right now. 5 times negative 60 is, let's do 5 times 6, and we'll put the negative sign. Negative 5 times 6 makes 30, and then we have that 0 at the end. We had this 0, so that's where this one comes from. Divided by negative 20 divided by negative 2. Negative 20 divided by negative 2. So how many times does 2 fit into 20? 10. And since both of those are negative, their answer is going to be positive. So we're going to cut 300. We have negative 300, and we're going to divide it into 10 pieces. That means we're going to take negative 300 and find out how many times 10 fits into it. And since there's just these extra zeros at the end, if there's a 0 down here and a 0 up here, you can ignore them. What happens is we're just dividing both of these by 10. So we get negative 30. When we're crossing out those zeros there, what we're really doing is we are reducing the bottom and we are reducing the top by 10. But since it's a 10, it basically cancels itself out. And I'll go down to the very last question. We have a negative 6 times negative 3 times 2 divided by negative 2 times 9. You need to say these things out loud. Negative 6 times negative 3. Negative 6 times negative 3 makes 18. Then we're going to multiply that 18 by 2. Negative 2 times 9. I'm looking at the bottom. I didn't finish the top, but I'm looking at the bottom right now. Negative 2 times 9 would make negative 18. I could have done this in the last step to save us a little bit of time, but here we can see we have an 18 on the top and a negative 18 on the bottom. So what I can do is I can divide the top by 18 and divide the bottom by 18. We're reducing is what we're doing. And 18 fits into 18 once, so we have 1 times 2. And 18 fits into 18 once, but there's a negative, so it's negative 1. So then I have 1 times 2, which makes 2 on top, divided by negative 1. And negative 1 fits into 2, negative 2 times. Another way we could have answered this question is negative 6 times negative 3 times 2 divided by negative 2 times 9 equals, we see a 2 on the top and the bottom, so I can cancel those out. The negative is going to stay, but those 2's can go away because they balance each other out. Then I have a 3 on top and a 9 on the bottom. Well, before we even do that, we have 2 negatives on top, so those 2 negatives make a positive. I have a 3 on top and a 9 on the bottom. 3 and 9 can both be reduced by 3. 3 fits into 3 one time, so I'm going to put 6 times 1 divided by, how many times does 3 fit into 9? 3 fits into 9 3 times, so I have 6 divided by negative 3, and then 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So that shows you that you could do all of these with long division. I could have multiplied all 3 of these top numbers and then multiplied the bottom numbers and then divided them the same way that I did the first question up here with that 3 and 24. You can do that. Or you can flex your brain a little more. You can find common divisors. What fits into 6? What fits into negative 384? You have to think about the factors, the divisors. Those are basically the same thing. You can rewrite numbers, and I'll teach you that in another lesson.